Let's do like I did last night and lift both the lid and the toilet seat. But this time, let's get our asses wet with music. This episode, let's jump in with 5 new unsung singles. 5, you ask? That's an odd number. It's the 5th episode! This time we're talking about Camp Cope from Melbourne, Pink Mountaintops from Vancouver, Rotten Mind from Uppsala, Tody Castillo from Austin, but to begin with, from Ann Arbor, Ai Bendr. Bendr, you ask? Ai Bendr. One of the reasons I listen to every new single submitted to me is that it helps me avoid the trap of my biases. You can probably already tell from looking at me that I'm an incredible bigot. And, all stupid people are bigots. See, that's bigotry right there. My bigotry doesn't manifest itself in race, gender, or class, but styles of music or particular artists. These artists include, but are not limited to, Eagles, Doobie Brothers, Rush, Pink Floyd, Chicago, Steely Dan, Jewel, Dave Matthews Band, and Jethro Tull. Fortunately for me, most of them aren't issuing new music, and therefore I can close the book on them as regards to Ess-Fo. I bring this up because I struggle with what I call MySpace pop, typified by Halsey, Julia Michaels, and their clones. It's pity partying on an exhibitionist level, usually synth or electronica based, invariably with lyrics that are both self-absorbed and lacking self-awareness, probably written on wrists and knees during history class, and sample themes include I'm a mess, you're a mess. And then you have to make it kind of sweary as a cue to let us know how seriously we should take you. It's like hearing Total Eclipse of the Heart with the F-bombs from Old School, just not in the context of a Will Ferrell comedy. I gave this style of music this name because it reminds me of MySpace pages that were as if a competition among tweens and teens to dump their purses on the internet and invite everyone into their lives while simultaneously posting aggressive photos of themselves that say, "Stay away." At first, the music was probably a reaction to Taylor Swift and that innocence, that white girl innocence, but ultimately it just lacks guile and subtlety. But if I were to reject MySpace pop singles right out of hand, I might overlook some gems that would go nicely in the Ess-Fo Mr. Fusion fuel tank. Was I supposed to be talking about somebody? Ai Bendr. Let's rerun the card. On paper, I should not like I Never Learned by Ai Bendr. The lyrics about repeatedly falling into love and getting squashed were barely relatable to me in my 20s and are not so now that I'm in my 40s. There are superfluous little production flourishes like this guitar sound that's made like it's supposed to be coming off of an old warped vinyl record. She swears gratuitously, but I love it. There's passion in her delivery that hints at a bemused exasperation, and enough of an echo that makes it sound like it was home recorded in an empty room. It sounds genuine. I hear I Never Learn, and I root for Bendr. After hearing it, I meditated for a while to see if anything else was changing inside of me. And that's when I realized the song reminded me of 2 artists I really enjoyed. The first is Miguel, and I made this discovery before I learned that Ai Bendr also has a song about coffee, and the other artist was Sky Ferreira. For the record, Ai Bendr has already had a single show up on the Euphoria soundtrack. MySpace girl alert. But her other songs aren't really all that MySpacey. Links are below. As something of a rube, I often trick myself into misunderstanding or misinterpreting song lyrics. Not like I don't know that Chelsea Hotel by Leonard Cohen is about Janis Joplin, but more, for instance, take the song Unknown to You by Jacob Banks. I was fairly sure it was a love song, when, of course, it's about growing up without a father. If you don't put Daddy's Gone in the song title like Las Vegas did, then you're going to have to wait for me to catch up. In the past few years, obviously mental health issues have been exacerbated by COVID-19 lockdowns and have led to thousands of songs that toe the line between someone talking romantically or talking about what's going on in their own heads. This used to be sort of clear. Of course, romantic issues and mental health issues go hand in hand, and if pop music is fertile ground for anything, it's the former. That in mind, Running with the Hurricane could be about a bad breakup, but the lyrics? If it's a romantic problem, then we're talking Romeo-grade devastation. The Cope, they sing, and if this is the bottom, I can show you around. There's no other way to go. There's no other way to go. Part of me wonders if this is the perspective of a band that can't seem to get its fortunes off the ground. I can't remember the first time I heard of Camp Cope, but I do remember the press being very positive about them. That was probably 6 years ago, and I am pretty surprised that, from the Spotify stats at least, they aren't nearly as popular as similar acts. They're an indie rock trio, and if you need to ballpark the sound, it's be between Sleater-Kinney and Haim. So it's punky and guitar-driven, but with harmonies and a sense of style. The guitars are more like Liz Phair than the Butchies or Paramore even. One of the things I love about this song is that the bass guitar initially is out of sync with the beat, kind of how a novice player just kind of stabs at the notes. However, as the song picks up and the lyrics see the light above, sample lyric, and if this is the bottom, then I can show you what to do. So as this happens in the lyrics, the bass guitar begins to mesh with the drums and guitar, and everything metaphorically comes together. Links are below. It would take a patient person with a lot of finger stamina, as well as an inborn resistance to carpal tunnel, to log all of the stupid things that I say. But your ears would perk up at the next bit. The publicity photo that accompanied the Pink Mountaintops' Lights of the City really sells the song. Normally, the best way to accomplish this is for the artist in question to wear as little clothing as possible. In fact, that's the only way to gain attention with a publicity photo. Otherwise, they are inherently functional and boring. But in the accompanying photo for the single, we see a lonely older guy sitting poolside on an empty deck that's festooned for a party. His legs aren't fully in the water. Did something happen that made everyone leave? Did no one show up? Does no one ever show up? All that's missing is a mound of cocaine and a shotgun. He has nothing to do but probably get in the car and go look for somebody. And the song sounds like that. It sounds like a lonely drive on a summer night. The song's focal point is its guitar riff, which recalls Black Diamond by Kiss, but the version played by the Replacements on Let It Be. The Replacements trolled their fans by playing a straightforward cover of the most superficial of the 70s classic rock bands. And this was at a time when Kiss had become an also-ran and was ripe for low-hanging parody. Side note to this, the pro-revolution Chicago punk band Rise Against has entered this sort of Life of Brian phase where it exhorts people to think for themselves and fight the system, and the fans are like, yes, we've got to work it out for ourselves. Tell us more. However, in 2003, at the end of its first album, they included a cover of Journey's Any Way You Want It, which happened to come on the heels of an era when 80s songs were being ironically covered by everyone from Limp Bizkit to Alien Ant Farm. Instead, however, Rise Against plays it phenomenally straight, and singer Tim McIlrath gives maybe the vocal performance of his career. It's worth checking out. The link is below. Anyway, back to Pink Mountaintops. The reason my mind drifted to the Replacements version of that song is not even because of the way the guitars from Paul Westerberg and Bob Stinson are recorded. It's more because the song has a vibe of bands that drew from those early Replacements records, like Congregation by the Afghan Whigs, Exit the Dragon era Urge Overkill, maybe The National, and some Sharon Van Etten in there as well. Links are below. But what am I telling you? If you want to know more about the song, look at it. Okay. Now, I don't want to start a hysteria over this because there have been several false dawns in the past 2 decades. But there might be a small revival of Swedish guitar rock. Stay seated until the plane pulls into the gate, but you can turn on your devices again. You know what I'm saying? We'll get to Liar, Thief, Bandit, and Omni of Halos in future episodes, or you can check out the reviews on Instagram or Twitter. But what's interesting about Drifter by Rotten Mind is how it moves the spectrum ahead. If I remember the timeline correctly, at the end of the 90s, they culminated in a bunch of New York bands like The Strokes, the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, Chick Chick Chick, and so on. This inspired a generation of British bands like Franz Ferdinand, Block Party, Futurehead, stuff like that. And then the Swedish bands capped it off in the form of The Hives, Soundtrack of Our Lives, International Noise Conspiracy, Sahara, Hot Nights, The Helicopters, and Scene. While those bands were looking back 20 years or more, Rotten Mind goes the same amount. So, Drifter sounds like Brandon Flowers from The Killers walking in on the Walkmen while they recorded The Rat. There's also a chance this all-star session featured a surfboard because it has that Oceanside Frank Black crest riding feel. I don't know, maybe it's the reverb or the lyrics to Wave of Mutilation, but whenever I think of surfing, I think of Frank Black. I also hear Jim Carrey each time I'm asked for a password.
The password is nipple.
So take that for what it is. Links are below. Before it became fashionable to criticize MTV for not showing videos anymore, it had 2 Julie Browns. One was the missing link between Cyndi Lauper and Kathy Griffin. The other was an English woman named Downtown Julie Brown, whose nickname only makes sense if there was a guitar-themed show on MTV in the UK hosted by City Centre Leo Fender. MTV had plenty of watchable non-music shows, and one of those was the half-hour comedy hour. Usually it showed 5-minute clips of Star Search-worthy comedians without the creepy child star wannabes getting in the way. But the show also featured original sketches, and one of my favorites of those was an episode of This Old House where Bob Vila was replaced by Robert Smith from The Cure. Robert, Bob, this was thinking person stuff. The joke was that Robert Smith didn't want any damage repaired, and the character based on Norm who would follow him around would be annoyed, and then Robert Smith would ask him to smash things up further and make them look more depressing. The point is that Robert Smith's look and voice transcend The Cure almost to the point where he's become Vincent Price or Elvira. Even today, Smith moonlights with the electronic duo Churches because he makes their spooky shit that much spookier. Tody Castillo, therefore, comes along on a one-man vocal rescue mission, and this is something a man has to do when you have such a voice and you don't feel like wearing dark eyeliner. Lucky for young Castillo, is that his singing voice is not like Cannibal Corpse's George Fisher, because you're pretty much locked into death metal at that point. March for Miles, therefore, writes the book on how to pay homage to The Cure without overplaying the Smith angle. The song itself has a mid-tempo college rock feel reminiscent of REM, and it's about looking through old family photographs to find someone who went to war, and there's pictures of before and after. The nostalgic feel of the song is somewhat awkward in light of the current war in Ukraine. However, maybe Robert Smith would have wanted it that way. Links are below. Thanks for watching. Like this. Subscribe to me. Don't forget to check Instagram and Twitter again for more recent reviews. Next episode features a little metal, some space age R&B, a one-off collaboration for a web series, and Korean hip-hop. Yeah, that's right.